Welcome to the greetings and salutations all. Welcome to the February 13th edition of the Akron Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Can we all, so today, as we proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance, we have a special guest with us today that's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Mr. Devontae Clark, and this young man is a kindergarten student at Helen Arnold CLC. Some fast facts about Devontae is he loves his classmates, he loves his teacher, and completing his iReady assignments. So can we give him a round of applause? And Jontasha Brown is the proud mother of Devontae. And
what's your teacher's name?
Well, that's
Miss Krishner.
There we go. Fantastic, fantastic. And they are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today, so we can all please rise.
You gotta put your hand on your heart. Put your hand.
All right, Devontae.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America.
And
to the republic
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
with justice for all.
Thank you, Devontae. We appreciate you. And for all of you who tried to roll through that Pledge of Allegiance ultra fast like that, patience is a virtue. Okay. All right. So next we will proceed to roll call, please. Mr. Atkins.
Dr. Akbar.
Here.
Mr. Alexander. Ms. Autry.
Present.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Ms. Jackson.
Present.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
Mr. Perry.
I'm here. Okay. So next we're going to proceed to, what are we doing? Do we want to do 1.3 now? Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. So next we'll proceed to so we have a number of special guests here, our iReady student recognition. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to turn proceedings over to Ms. Outley and Mr. Hatcher.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tamiko Hatcher, Director of Special Programs, and I have the honor and privilege of being here with the Executive Director of Elementary Schools, Mary Otley Kelly. And for all the students who are out there, or our scholars who are here, the news media doesn't typically show up unless there's something very exciting. And I know that it was all because of your hard work and dedication over that winter break. So thank you guys for making the light shine bright here in Akron. So without further ado, we had a wonderful opportunity to allow or to challenge our young scholars in a iReady challenge. So for many of you, you say, well, we've heard a little bit about iReady, and what is iReady? It's an opportunity for us to really demonstrate our excellence through equity here at Akron Public Schools. We set out to look for a way that we can challenge our young scholars with an opportunity to demonstrate their academic prowess in English and mathematics. The wonderful students took advantage of a diagnostic test that pretty much outlined their strengths and their weaknesses and provided them with a plan in both ELA and math. What you're going to hear about today is how many of these young scholars decided to commit themselves over the winter break. And Mary Otley Kelly will talk to you a little bit about what the challenge was.
So over winter break, we challenged our scholars to spend 45 minutes per week on their iReady lessons for both reading and math, and and they had to also pass a minimum of 2 lessons per week. And so with that said, we had over 4,000 students participate for both reading and math, grades K through 8, and we had 136 scholars who made it to our leaderboard. And half of them are in the room this evening as we celebrate scholars from the Bookdo, East, Ellet, and specialty schools. So we just wanted you to know that each of our scholars received a swag bag, and inside the swag bag for kindergarten through 2nd grade, they're going to receive a Fire 7 for kids tablet, and then our scholars in 3rd through 8th grade will receive a Kindle to continue that learning. As our scholars begin to march in, we would like our families from the cluster to stand as well, because we call you our champions. We know our students could not do this on their own. They needed your love and support. And so we want you to have some recognition as well. So we're going to begin with the Bookdo cluster. Woo! Starting with our scholars from Helen Arnold, if you would come in at this time. And we would ask that the Bookdo cluster liaison, along with Dr. Hall, and Mrs. Autry, please stand to our far right, left, my left, and so you can take a portrait with the cluster students. Also, our scholars from the Krause, CLC.
Thanks.
Scholars from Schumacher CLC, and our scholars from Bookdo CLC. Just one moment. I know we asked for our champions to stand, so if you have a little one up here, we need you to stand up in the audience so you can be recognized. Come on. And due to the amount of business that the board has to handle this evening, we would, if you would like, after your picture, we would invite the parents to come up this way and to go out this door after you take your picture. We just want to celebrate you and get our next group up, and then you can go home and do other things. Unless you really want to stay with us tonight for the rest of the board meeting. So if our champions can come on up at this time. Did we get our photo of our Bookdo cluster? Okay, we are ready to start our East cluster with Mr. Hatcher.
And if at this time we could have our board East Cluster representative join Dr. Hall up front. Awesome. And if at this time our Barber CLC winners would make their way to the front to be recognized. We have Barber CLC. We have David Hill. Mason CLC. Robinson. Cyberling. Let's welcome these young adults. And East CLC.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So if we could have this group make their way in so that they can take their photo, as well as their significant champion, who is also in the audience.
Yeah. That's right. Good job.
And if the champion supporters could make their way to the front and escort their young adult.
That's right. Excellent, excellent.
Oh, the little man.
You got it? Yeah.
And let's welcome awesome.
The man of the hour with
Awesome.
I got you guys. High five.
And if we can welcome our Ellet Cluster winners. Represented tonight, we have Betty Jane, Hatton CLC, Ritzman CLC, Windermere CLC, and Higher CLC. That's lovely. Yeah, he did.
These two hands.
Look at Dad walking up.
Riley, get off the bike.
So funny.
All right. And for our champion supporters, if we can have one round of applause for the Ellet Cluster supporters. Champion supporters, if you would make your way to the front to escort your young scholar.
Blake just likes it a little more. Thank you very much.
Yep, that's it.
get a nice big screen.
And for our last cluster, we're going to welcome the specialty school winners, if they would make their way to the front. Representing our specialty schools, we have Bridges, I Promise, Miller South, and NIF STEM Middle School. Right. And as we said earlier, none of this is possible without our parent champions. So let's hear for our parents.
We also had a Sora challenge over the break, and I'm wondering if these.
They wouldn't put it back.
Don't put it past me. So if these students are present, we would like them to come up as well. Bryce from Cyberling. If not, we will make sure he gets Bryce here. Whoop, whoop. Quentin from Bookdo. And Alan from STEM. We will make sure they receive their Kindles as well. Thank you so much, and we congratulate all of our scholars and all of our champions that help us support us in the work.
So that is why we're all here, right? That is true north on the compass. You just saw that in action. So thank you so much, Miss Otley Kelly and Mr. Hatcher, for leading that part of the proceedings tonight. It was great to see so many young people down here achieving. So next we move to community and school reflections, and we have several folks who have signed up to address the board. We'll start with Miss Lillian Barnes. And before you begin, you are permitted 3 minutes of time, and we always ask that all statements are directed towards myself, and no person may address or question board members individually. And we also ask that you also will not be permitted to speak on matters related to vendors, business matters, formal complaints, grievances, specific students or student records, personnel matters, and potential or pending legal matters.
That means names, right? I did this before. I got it.
Okay. All right, roger that. All right. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm speaking about our long-term substitute teacher who was just escorted at a high school. How I found out is by listening to him. He had displayed about our Black history, which today, as well as this month, is Black History Month. It upsets me that we don't even teach our kids the truth on what's going on in our education. It also upsets me that you guys, and I'm saying APS, can escort this substitute, but when it came down to my daughter being left unattended, She was not escorted. She was written up. There was nothing to be done. I am not leaving this alone. This is a safety matter. What's more important, safety or education? That's what we need to focus on. I'd rather for my child to learn the truth about her history than not to be safe. I don't feel like my daughter was safe. I don't feel like I can trust APS with my children as I drop them off. When I drop them off at APS, at their school, that means that I'm trusting you. I should not have to keep on speaking upon safety matters. Bullying, safety, that comes before anything else because that's what I'm trusting you with. And then there's the education aspects. I can only do so much at home. But when I'm sitting up here dropping my daughters off at school, I'm expecting them to just not feel safe, but at least give them the truth of education. It cannot be falsified. This is why we going through the same matters as of today. If we don't get it together, it's going to get worse. Look at Jalen Walker. We don't need another Jalen Walker. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, page 31 in this policy handbook, it says, do not leave your classroom behind. This is from the school, and this also goes upon policy. Please follow it.
Thank you so much for your time. Next we have Kazima Moore.
Hi, my name is Kazima Moore. I'm going to be speaking on how the substitute teacher from my high school got executed because of teaching his class about Black History Month and the truth. Now, to me personally, I think that's unfair because on how he got executed right away. But when the substitute teacher left my little sister in the classroom unattended, she got rolled up and didn't get executed until weeks later. And now it's just getting executed. But now it's just getting executed like a couple of days ago. And to me, that's just unfair on how he got executed for teaching his class the truth and trying to get his students educated about Black History Month.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Next we have, is it Ken Brooks?
Hello, I'm also here to speak about the teacher that was let go due to speaking about the history of race in this country. Especially being that it is Black History Month, there are so many schools that refuse to even speak about the fact that it is Black History Month. My kids just transferred from a school where a teacher kind of got offended or got an attitude that they said, you know, it's Black History Month. And you know, they kind of sucked their teeth and shrugged their shoulder at my child, which made them uncomfortable to the point that they came back and kind of replayed it. So it let me know that it was clearly something that made them uncomfortable. Black people built this country. Black people are still, I mean, I don't want to say hunted, but I mean, you know, it's open season as usual. And we're not allowed to speak about the history when it's currently going on. Any one of these children could leave school and have something like Jalen Walker happen to them. But we're not allowed to teach them about that education, and for a teacher to be bold enough to do it, they lose their job. I don't get that. I mean, we just had a Black man shot over 50 times with over 100 bullets released at him last summer, and a Black male teacher, which we are in need of in APS, would be let go for speaking about Black history. I mean, I think it's ridiculous when Black history is not even, it doesn't even come up. At the school my kids just transferred from, every month in February, they give the kids a history project to do, where they're supposed to do a deep dive on an individual. And never on the list are there any Black people, no Mae Jamisons, no anyone. So I just feel like that's very telling. That for a Black male which we are in need of, to lose their job just for being honest. Although it may have seemed controversial, if you didn't understand the context, it was no less valid. I mean, especially when the facts are what they are. People were lynched. People are still being lynched in this country. So I wonder what APS is going to do, if anything, to rectify the situation, because it just seems extremely unjust. And I mean, it seems like another form of lynching. So, yeah.
Next, we have John Smith.
Happy Black History Month. Hey, I don't know what I can say because I still have not spoken to the union. They have left me hanging. So I hope this is being recorded because still haven't received a call. So I don't know what I'm allowed to say because you're supposed to represent me. But so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna play something from a very intellectual person and I'm gonna let them speak to you. And then hopefully they give me a call and I can come back to the next meeting. We can have a conversation with you because I hope my students are listening. Check me out, students. I brought my books too. This is KRS-One. So listen.
No justice, and it's a shame because America's above this, but it's really not because these cops, they are racist. The very foundation of America is racist. Yeah, we all know it, but nothing ever changes. They part of the system that puts us in cages. Time to break out every race, all ages. This is not anarchy. This is what changes. You don't have the right to tell me what my pain is, or tell me how to protest, or tell me what my aim is. You the fucking problem. That's where the blame is. Cops killing black people. That's what insane is. We politicians, we know what your name is. You can vote while I'm getting choked by a racist. All the actualizations against us are baseless. They falsifying evidence and burying the cases. FDP, yeah, we done heard it before. What we looking at is the beginning of civil war. Finally, we just might be getting right to the core. The proof and then the truth of that murder we just saw. Yeah, we done heard it before. What we looking at is the beginning of civil war. Finally, we just might be getting right to the core. The proof and then the truth of that murder we just saw. Fuck that. Criminal justice, they run that. They can have guns, but ask me where my gun at. They the criminals, but it's me they want to come at. Who's telling them to put their gun back? Fuck that. When it's gonna end? Being killed by cops is the sixth leading cause of death for black men. And then the courts don't convict them. When the camera shows they the criminals, then we are the victims. Yeah, we done heard it before. What we looking at is the beginning of civil war. Finally, we just might be getting right to the core. The proof and then the truth of that murder we just saw. Yeah, we done heard it before. What we looking at is the beginning of civil war. Finally, we just might be getting right to the core. The proof and then the truth of that murder we just saw. And there'll always be one more. As long as white society holds the monopoly on all law. Either or, that's the only law we follow. Cause colonial custom is what we train to model. Shots in the air, this is just another day for me. Modern day slavery still requires the bravery. Street photography, making slavery plain to see. We used to die aimlessly, now the camera aims at me. One shot saving me, other shot slaying me. But how is this condition any different from slavery? White supremacy is still trying to enslave us when our voice is ignored unless white folks save us. I appreciate the protest for sure, but when we gonna end the monopoly of white law? We follow they laws while they follow none. We told to be peaceful while they busting their gun. Yeah, we done heard it before. What we looking at is the beginning of
Mr. Smith, we're at time. That's our 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Hey, happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month to you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, next we are going to move to community and school reflections. We will open the floor. Ms. Jackson.
Since our last meeting, I had the opportunity, I actually visited Mr. Smith's class at Garfield TLC, and it was something very positive. It was White Shirt Wednesday. Students were excited at the time. I had the pleasure of seeing a student. He was 11th grader. For the first time, he tied a tie, the man in the top right. That was his first time ever tying a tie, and he was very excited about that. I spoke with students, and it was very empowering. Even the front office, Ms. Booth, who led me up there, like, she was very nice and gracious. Additionally, I would like to highlight what's happening, Ms. Anderson at Bookdo with the Bookdo, the mock interviews. I think that's a wonderful event that took place and helps students to engage and become comfortable, to know how to articulate and being under the wire, right? When you're speaking, even though you can train things in a classroom, it's different, the application, right? And so I thought that was a very great thing. So I'm glad that you guys are able to see those pictures that are shared there. Additionally, I also had the opportunity to visit East CLC, and I visit Ms. Treen, who I believe is here on today. She had a dynamic history lesson going on. Students were looking at heritage and origins. That's correct. I didn't want to slaughter your lesson. It was so exciting. I was just happy to be in a classroom with so much vibrance and energy. She clearly had a good relationship with the students. They were excited about the lesson, and I just was like, man, I want to come back here in this classroom, being from a history background. So it was really a pleasant visit. It was excellent to see great teaching and teacher-student interactions, especially on the high school level. So I was happy about that. Additionally, I was able to go over to the middle school side at ECLC. And I popped into Miss Porter's class. And what I really liked about Miss Porter's class, when I went in, there was an 8th grade class, and it was a math class. And what I really like about math teachers, because I really didn't like math too much in school, and I had a really good math teacher at Garfield. Her name was Miss McKenna, and I think that was my best math experience throughout my whole life. But she was very engaging and walked you through each steps, right? And it was I do, we do, and I just really felt like I understood math. And I was in high school, and because of the layers of just feeling like I'm not good at math, and things like that, it was just refreshing, because here it is, I guess I was a pretty smart kid, but math, it would be like, oh God. So when I went to Miss Porter's class, what I really liked is that she wasn't expecting me. I was going to Miss Treen's class, and like I said, it was just such a dope experience going into a high school class with kids walking around and really excited about learning. Then I go to the middle school side, and I see this teacher who's not expecting a pop-up visit, nothing. I have the resource officer opens the door. You know who people are, or who they are. Character is what you do when no one's watching. And so then I see this teacher. She's up at the front with these visuals up. Her kids are surrounded in math class. Her kids are up on the smart board as she's engaging them with these samples. And I said, this is how excellence looks different. This is exactly what I would like to see in any class that you go in, a teacher that's that engaged. So I definitely wanted to highlight Miss Porter in that 8th grade math class, and it was a great experience and a great visit. Additionally, I want to give a shout out and congratulations to Demetrion Duval. He's also a Bookdo student who won the championship victory for the city championship victory for the Bookdo wrestling team. I should have sent his picture. I want to thank all the central office staff for doing this for me. I saw Mr. Duval over the weekend right after his win at Red Lobster, and I took a picture with him and his mother, which is on Carla Jackson for School Board on Facebook if you want to see the picture. But I just want to congratulate him on his efforts. And also, lastly, I want to give a shout out to the teachers regarding the iReady testing too. And the reason why I want to give a shout out to our, because it's the village mindset. But what was really cool is because every elementary, when I was in the Garfield cluster, every time, and even when I went into the Bookdo cluster, teachers had a time, because I usually go to buildings about 12:45, 1 o'clock. And it seems like each time I went in, there was a set scheduled time where when the teachers were transitioning, they were saying, oh, my kids are getting ready they're doing iReady right now. And it was like very intentional, was within their scheduling. So I definitely want to shout that out, Ms. Otley, for for the elementary team and how that was so well organized, and definitely give a shout out to the teachers, because it's intentionality, and I have bear witness to the intentionality of the teachers taking it serious and making sure it was a part of their schedule, and the students had the moments to also get additional time with iReady. So that ends my reflections.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Other reflections? Dr. Akbar.
Yes, I have had the opportunity and privilege to attend multiple events. I didn't get a chance to share this at the last meeting as I wasn't able to be here, but I was able to go to the STEM Expo, which most of us know as the science fair, but it's been broadened. It was phenomenal and different. So you were able to see some, I got a little pulled in and drawn in on the robotics demonstrations, which led me to go to their competition last week. But there was also some outstanding information given at the different stations for the students' presentations, which I was blown away from eco-justice all the way to, social science related projects. It was pretty amazing to see. And so I want to just congratulate Dr. Halassa for her continuous work on pulling that together and make it seems to get bigger and better every year. So that was pretty amazing. I also, along with Mr. Alexander, was able to attend Akron Public School Zone Amelia Sykes, Congresswoman for the 13th Congressional District's in-district swearing in, where this board presented our own graduate and APS resolution of appreciation on behalf of this board. And that was a delight to see as the first Black woman to represent this seat, and she is a proud Akron Public Schools graduate. And then as I alluded to, I also was able to go to the robotics competition that was held at Elliott last Thursday, I think it was, and it was phenomenal. I got to see the 11th ranked team in the world is a part of Akron Public Schools. I was able to see them compete. And then there was also some surprise teams. Who would have knew, maybe you did, that Miller South had a robotics team that was good. Like, that they not only had one, because you think of them as the art students and the music students, but they had a competitive robotics team. And I have pictures that I can show as well. I should have did what Miss Jackson did. Yes, it does. Okay. You follow great leadership. So, but that was something that was good, and I want to give Mr. Appleby from STEM a great shout out, as well as Mr. Duff, I believe his name is, who helped coordinate and put on the robotics competitions, multiple. And then I also got to see Behind the Veil, which you probably didn't know, well, I didn't know, that there's a lot of math that goes into the scoring, and how in real time as the competitions are happening, there's someone's specific job is to put the scores in the computer, and then it gets uploaded, it's live streamed, everyone can view it, and then it also gets calculated into the world scores, which I think is phenomenal. And so with that being said, we have some great opportunities and activities happening in Akron Public Schools. And I'm so excited to be able to see more and more of them as we go ahead in the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Akbar. Are there other community reflections? Ms. Autry.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Since we last met, I had also the pleasure of attending the science fair and had a great experience. Continue to be impressed with our students who are so talented. I had the pleasure of being able to award the medals to all the young people who placed. And so again, as Dr. Akbar said, great work from Dr. Halassa, the science department, and all the science teachers and the families who make sure that our students are involved in this. Also, since we last met, was able to attend the new partnership that APS has with Signet Jewelers. And so that was really nice. That partnership is with North High School. And so it was nice to see those ambassadors as usual, as well as their band. And so that's 2,000 hours over 3 years that they are committed to as a named partner and the final partner over at North High School. So thank you to Signet for that investment. Also, since we last met, got to always throw in sports. I had the pleasure of attending East Middle School boys basketball game versus Buchtel. And so, as usual, very exciting game. Congratulations to East Middle School for a great season. Also, since we last met, I was able to spend some time over at Cyberling CLC. Got to sit in on an art class who was studying Cubism. So that was nice to see that students that young are getting that deep with art. So lots of fun. Got to visit a second and third grade lunch. And that's always fun and exciting. Some of those students shared some of their values that they're following over there with me. And then Mrs. Fuller's fourth grade class, who I had the pleasure of visiting with when school first started. This is a class who lovingly thought I was 30 years old, so they're my favorites. But they were also studying poetry. They were talking about the gold rush. And so it was just nice to see them excited. They had lots of questions about school board and new position as vice president. So someone is coming for this seat soon in the near future. And then lastly, probably my favorite thing that I did since we last met is have an opportunity to bond with our student school board members. They had an event, Paint and Twist, and so it's a new place out in Fairlawn. Lots of fun. We did great paintings and got to have some great conversations around cell phones. And so they are actually currently in some leadership development with the Cavs this evening. And so I sent a message with them to make sure that Levert doesn't get traded and Osmond. Those are my favorites over there. But they had some really good input about cell phones, so I'm looking forward to hearing more from them when they return to the table. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Autry. Are there other comments? I also want to acknowledge Mr. Alexander is out ill today, so we'll be hoping that he's feeling better soon. Next, we'll pivot. Oh, Dr. Akbar.
I apologize. I did miss one great thing as well. I had the distinct pleasure of celebrating with and witnessing the retirement of Carla Chapman, our Chief Diversity Officer for the district's basketball jersey number at St. Vincent St. Mary, and it was, well, one, I got to see part of the game, so that was good, but more importantly, to see the outpour of love and support for our own Carla Chapman was amazing. And so I just wanted to say, in this meeting setting, congratulations, job well done. And she was the first female to have their number retired, and it's, I think, 2 numbers away from LeBron James. So congratulations, Carla Chapman.
Speaking of which, I'll have more commentary in the President's report, but Ms. Chapman, I just wanted to just confirm a stat that I saw associated with your excellence, that you averaged 25 points and 20 rebounds a game your senior year. Wow. Wow. I guess that's. I was like, is that a typo? 25 and 20 rebounds, 25. Wow. Okay. So anyway, that's dominance. That's excellence. And and those of you who have followed this closely, Ms. Chapman also attended Ohio State University, where they had a very successful tournament runs. I think they were the East Region champions, I think, your senior year, as I was reading about you. So super impressive career. Again, congratulations to you. Next, I think we had, Dr. Caver, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. I'm going to invite up Ms. Tecca to the podium. We are going to prepare for our cell phone presentation. And as our team that's here with Dr. Thompson gets ready to do that, Ms. Tecca is going to just make a few brief comments about some of the strategies that we are currently trying to implement in our secondary schools that support our cell phone policy.
Good evening, board. So I know we're getting ready to have a up-to-date from our chief of operations around some options for cell phone security. But before we get into those details, I wanted to share with you kind of what our current practices are around cell phone security. And these are implemented with different degrees of success across our secondary schools. But opportunities like cell phone boundaries have been put in place, such as scheduled cell phone breaks or locations where cell phones can be used. Some of our secondary schools use cell phone lockers. They have cell phone charging stations. They have pocket charts for students to drop their cell phones in. And then really just some cell phone procedures, such as when it's allowable to use your cell phone and when it's not. And those are not perfect solutions, but I wanted to make sure you were aware there are some strategies being implemented across the city right now. And then I'm going to turn it over back to Dr. Caver. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tecca. So we just wanted to make sure we shared some of the work that is going on in some of the buildings across the district. And now I invite the team to come and share the wonderful solutions that you are ready to present this evening.
Well, thank you and welcome. My name is Dr. Thompson, but before I start, I would like to have Tamiko stand up if you would. Can you stand up real quick, Tamiko? Have you ever seen a person select a better suit color and look so sharp, doesn't he? The guy knows how to dress. That's all I got to say about that. But we're here with our team in a true partnership, putting together solutions to some of the challenges that we face. With me is Larry Johnson. He's our supervisor of APS middle schools. Don Zessiger is our director of safety and security. Pat Scheit, right next to me, is our AEA president. That's the president of the teachers union. Dan Richards is the chair of our AEA student adjustment and behavior committee. And Elena Treen is our chair of the AEA legislative committee. So we really wanted to come together and solve some of our difficult challenges. And these aren't the end of our work. This is the beginning of our work. I am excited to announce, fortunately, we did receive in round 4 of Ohio Safety Grant Award $650,000 towards safety and security. So that will really help us moving forward, offset some of our expenditures that I think we all agree we need to make, but it sure makes it a whole lot easier when you have $650,000. You won't see that money reflected on your board agenda because that money hasn't been received, and so we can't move against money that hasn't been received. But it is coming to the district, and I'm hopeful that we can continue our efforts and continue our work moving forward. And so without further ado, I would like to turn this over to Pat Scheit and to Larry Johnson to kind of give you an update of where we went, why we went there, and what we saw.
Thank you.
So, excuse me.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. So the first thing we'd like to do is we are going to present to you how this came about, what we saw in Dayton, and what we've seen happen in other districts. But the first thing we're going to do for board members and for Dr. Caver is to give you a sample of the yonder bags. that our Yonder team is passing out right now.
Are these ours to keep? Do we have to give them back? Am I
Well,
being charged for them? Just check.
What you
just
can
check.
do with them right now is we'd like all of you to get your cell phones out and put them in the
In the
bags.
bag. Okay. I love a good demonstration.
And then we're going to have you lock the bags with your cell phones in them.
So just line it up and click it.
And we realize that this may be harder for some people than others to lock your cell phones away, but bear with us.
We do have the unlock device, right? I just want to just check. We have that on hand.
I believe so.
Oh, okay.
We're checking on that. So, as many of you are aware, and many of you live streaming this meeting tonight, the community at large, we've had, as many other districts, some challenges, particularly in the recent past. It's been a bit of a year, and we're excited, AEA is excited to be here and be working collaboratively with the administration, with the board, to put forth some potential really exciting programs that we believe will be a game changer as far as safety and security in our buildings. When we realized the extent of cell phone usage and what that manifested in the buildings looked like, it was increasingly concerning how our many of our students utilize their cell phones, not only in educational purposes, but they are out continually. And with concerns about student behaviors in our buildings, and particularly our secondary buildings, and how that impacted in a negative way at times, utilizing cell phones within the buildings, we knew we had to do something. AEA at the time, because I go to the Ohio 8, which are the 8 urban school districts, largest school districts, and speak to the superintendents and the union presidents all the time. Spoke to the superintendent of Dayton City Schools, Libby Lally, and asked if we could come and observe. They just this school year implemented the Yonder system, and so we wanted to go and see it firsthand. I was able to reach out to the administrators, to Larry, to Dr. Thompson, Don Ziesinger, and they went along with us, with Dan and Elena and myself, and observed that. And in addition to that, we've talked to other districts and done quite a bit of research, but it was very beneficial, and we'd like to share what we saw in Dayton with you and present to you what we believe are some really exciting and examples of some really successful cell phone policies in other districts. And so I'll let Larry, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. So my responsibility is just to share with you what I saw or what we saw. So we went to Dayton. We went to Dayton primarily because Dayton looks, sounds, and feels like Akron Public Schools. Population is very similar. We visited 3 schools. We visited an alternative elementary school, a middle school, and then a high school and a middle school combined. So it was 6 through 12. In the middle school, they had no cell phone policy. They've been working on this for about 5 years. When students come into the building, they go through security. They turn their cell phones in. Administration takes them, keeps them, puts them in a locked area, secures them, and then they take them back and give them to the students at the end of the day. We did not see that opening of the day. They started early. They started at I feel like 6:45 or something like that. It was a little bit early for Mrs. Scheidt and breakfast. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. We went to the most, I think, powerful visit was the 6 through 12 building, where the students actually came in with the bags, Yonder bags that you have, and they put their cell phones in the bag as they came into the building. So security As they came in, they put their phones in the bag. Security checked the phones. They went through, all the students went through the metal detector, and they came back on the other side of the metal detector, and they picked up their cell phones and all of their other belongings. From what we got there right at the beginning of entry, and we saw the whole high school go in, probably about 500 students. We saw 5 students, try to get a cell phone through the building. 2, they tried to sneak them in. 1 was in a bag of sesame seeds, sunflower seeds. Yeah. Security caught them. They were on it. They were like, what is this? Nope. And the procedure was, if you don't have your yonder bag, you have to turn your phone into the principal. The principal keeps your phone in the office. Parents are notified. You can get your phone back at the end of the day. If it happens more than twice, the principal calls the parents. The parents have to come up and get the cell phone whenever they're available. The majority of students, and by the majority, all but 5 students that we saw, had their cell phones either in their yonder bag or they didn't bring them. So one thing you may or may not know about me is, if there are students around, I am going to have some conversations with students. So as they were coming in, Dr. Thompson and I kind of stood as they came through the metal detector, and we asked a couple of them, the ones that will speak to strangers, right? One young lady was like, I said, no, I just want to know how you feel about it. And not one student said it's a problem. Most of the students were like, not a big deal. One young lady said she didn't even bring her cell phone to school anymore because she can't use it. It was, at this point in the year, it was a non-issue. Not one student that I spoke with thought, I need my cell phone, I wish I had my cell phone. It was a non-issue. It was really, really good to see. More than that, it was great to hear from students that not only was this a non-issue, they seemed relieved that this wasn't a thing for them.
Great.
Yeah, and there's a video, but Mrs. Shipe said some students reported grades going up, a little more attention. But there's some more information that you're going to hear about that later on.
Thank you, guys. Honored to be before the board as always, and it was a privilege to go on a trip with everybody. Ms. Jackson, did you lock your bag? I wanted to check. Oh. I just wanted to check, make sure they were locked. I would just add, we really enjoyed the trip. Stiver High School, which we visited, I was very interested to see demographically very similar to Garfield High School, almost precisely the same number of students. And just to add to what Larry said, entry very smooth. I had an opportunity to talk with the head principal there, very sharp gentleman. And I asked him specifically about pushback, if there was a big issue. And he said, Dan, I had 8 to 10 phone calls. Everything was very well rolled out, advertised, talked about, justified, if you will, beforehand. So it was a really positive experience, and I was very moved to see that. So my slide that I'm going to chat about with you a little bit, Yonder surveyed over 900 different school partners, and I was chatting with the Yonder folks here before the meeting today. This data that they present to us here on this slide was aggregated from direct responses from those schools. So this is not data that Yonder's put together, they aggregated it, but this was data from those school responses, which any of us in education or even outside of education would certainly find compelling as we see those particular statistics to think about the impact in our schools, the impact on our students' education. Then the bottom box too, I was interested by that quote from an article in The Atlantic in 2017. I would encourage anybody to read that. I read that carefully this weekend. It's a very comprehensive and very compelling article about cell phone use and its impact. There's a lot of data represented that I find very interesting. And as a school counselor, practitioner every day, working in school buildings, as a proponent of this idea in the Akron Public Schools to find a meaningful and respectful way to limit student cell phone use. Without any data ready, of course, but I would say in the mental health aspect, everyday impact in a school counseling office from one practitioner's point of view, cell phone usage and social media usage is so incredibly impactful in a negative way, not always, but in a negative way so frequently on a daily basis in the school counseling office and certainly in the classroom, so certainly something to consider. And then the next slide is just about 3 minutes or so of a video that Yonder put together It's about 3 minutes of your time that we find very interesting, and I think as you watch it, you'll probably find it compelling in the same way that I did. Most of it is direct interviews with students that use the bags in their schools and their reaction to it. So I think you'll enjoy this.
Ask a teacher, they'll tell you cell phones are still an issue and a big classroom distraction.
And now thousands of schools around the country, including right here in the metro, are taking back those classrooms with a small cell phone pouch.
Today, 95% of teens have access to a smartphone, and 45% self-report that they're online almost constantly. Smartphones have penetrated all aspects of daily life, but of special concern to educators is their prevalence in schools. The average kid gets their first smartphone at age 10. That's 5th grade. Most will open their first social media account within the next few years. But some schools are beginning to question the wisdom of allowing kids to enter the classroom with tiny computers and social networks in their pockets. These concerns, along with a general annoyance at phone-gazing concert goers, led Graham Dugoni to build a device called Yonder. Users drop their phone in, the pouch locks, and can only be reopened with a large magnet.
So you come in through the door, and you open the pouch.
We get our phone out, make sure it's powered off, on airplane mode, all that.
Put your phone inside and you close it, and throughout the day you can't open it.
For me at first, I didn't really like it.
A pouch? Seriously?
I barely came to the school. They just started doing a Yonder thing. And I was like, oh my, why?
Everyone was realizing getting any work done, and like their schoolwork was like declining because of the phone use.
So this is phone usage per day before Yonder. How many messages did you get? How many times did you check social media? How many hours did you spend on your phone? How would you describe these numbers?
Big.
Surprising.
Excessive.
A little too much.
I remember like sophomore year, I tried to get my followers up like every day, just check my followers constantly.
You're just constantly comparing yourself to other women on your feed, and it definitely takes a toll on your self-image.
I got more focused in work. My grades went up.
I was sitting alone, and I saw this other kid across from me who was also sitting alone and can't play. So I went up to them and I introduced myself and actually met someone new.
3 days later, I was just like, what are we learning today? Because I can't even open it.
Less distracted and honestly happier, kind of, because they're not worrying about what's going on in social media.
Interacting way more, like instead of being on their phones and have their earbuds in and not interacting with people, a lot of people are interacting with people, getting to know other people.
The atmosphere seemed more positive. I'm always used to having it right here and not having it for 8 hours throughout the day. It changes.
Hi, I'm Elena Treen. I'm also very privileged to be presenting to all of you guys. So just to kind of piggyback on what the video was saying, what the staff said to us at the buildings where they also saw it a lot was in the cafeteria. The kids were talking to each other instead of sitting down like that. There was a lot more interaction, and you heard the kids saying, like, I'm making friends, I'm learning people's names, which is huge because they don't know the people with them. The great thing about Yonder is they have a really nice program. It starts with admin training. We actually are going to be training our safety team as well. We have planning that goes out for everyone. There's going to be presentations to the staff, presentations to parents, presentations to students. There will be in-person training for all of those categories, so everyone has the opportunity to see the Yonder bag and see how it works to reduce those questions and help them understand. The unlocking base is included, which I saw around here somewhere. Obviously the bags, and then our wonderful support team back there, which they've already been great for us.
Hi, I'm Don Zussiger, Director of Security. Before I forget, I want to reemphasize, I don't know if we said, Dayton has only been doing this process since the beginning of the school year. So they just started in August, and these kids are really in a rhythm. I mean, it just flows. And A lot of them did say they've made new friends, and it takes away the chaos, the confusion. Especially from what I do, I have to sort out fact from fiction on these social media threats. And it's constant nonsense, so that part's very appealing. But this kind of gives you an idea of how it will work. So the kids come in the morning, they each have their own bag. They put their cell phone in the bag. There'll be an administrator checking it and clicking it to make sure it's sealed. For kids that have a medical issue, that need to have their phone with them, those bags, as you see, you have the clicker, they have a Velcro closure. That's how the administrator knows that they have a medical condition that they need to have that with them. If they forget their phone, what they do is they put it in a paper envelope, put their name on it, and they hold it for the day, and the child gets it back at the end of the day. And then as we talked about, there were some instances of kids trying to get another cell phone in, and that was captured at the metal detector. So that's pretty much how we plan to do it. And then you'll see the magnet that unlocks the bag. So those are posted at the end of the day. So as the kids leave the building, they tap the magnet with their bag and unlocks it, and they have access to their cell phone. But they're keeping their cell phones with them all day long, just in the bag.
So the schools that we'll start out with are Ellett CLC, excuse me, East CLC High School, East CLC Middle School, and Bookdale CLC Middle School. That'll be the week of 2/13. Obviously, we're having our presentation tonight, and we'll work really diligently on our staff professional development, which was already talked about to some degree. Letters out. Safety team training will take place this Friday. Student presentations in homerooms the next week. And there'll be a meeting at each school to roll this out to our parents and to address their concerns as well. And then you can see when we plan to go live. I do say this is a tentative timeline, provided everything goes the way that we anticipate. But this is our goal of moving forward. And then we just wanted to just address a few questions, and then there'll be a second presentation on another product, and then we'll answer questions, open it up for questions for the board on both products simultaneously. But I'll let Ms. Scheidt take this first question.
So what if you see a student's phone outside of their Yonder pouch? We will have a protocol in place, and we will address that at the time. We believe that much of that will be handled in the morning upon entry through the administrative check of the Yonder bags, and also through coming through the metal detectors. The Yonder bag will be set aside, so as they go through the metal detectors, if there's more electronics on their person, we will check that at that time and move forward. So it's going to be, as in every district that has implemented this, it's going to be a short learning curve. We will expect there to be some tweaks made to our policy, but that will be addressed if students are seen with their phones out, and including those that have medical bags. Those are there for medical emergencies only and not for use during the day.
What if a student damages their Yonder bag? That will be collected by the administration. The parent will be required to pick up the phone, and then next steps will be determined by our policy. And for clarity, we have district policy, which we'll need to revisit, but then you have administrative guidelines that are used to administer board policy. So we'll construct both of those for the board's approval and to review. But the goal will be that our response to any of these questions are consistent across all of our buildings.
And then what if a student forgets their pouch? Mr. Ziesinger had touched on that during his presentation. So as they come in, if they forget their pouch and offer up that I forgot my pouch, or that I didn't realize I had my phone on me, I don't have a Yonder bag, then there'll be a station for them to put that phone into a brown envelope seal the envelope, write their name on the front of it, and those phones will go into the office for safekeeping, and they can retrieve that at the end of the day. So we, again, expect some of those glitches to be, we're going to roll that out in the policies during the trainings and answer any questions at that time.
And what happens in the event of an emergency, we'll follow our safety protocols and our administrative guidelines, that we'll put out. And there are a stacked or layered responses in an emergency, and we feel that we have what we need in place to effectively manage an emergency. In fact, the Yonder bag will assist us in doing that effectively.
And I'll just piggyback on that to say we've been hard at work for the last number of weeks. A lot of people, a large amount of people have been hard at work collaboratively to roll out a multi-layer approach to safety and security. So the Yonder bags are one tool that we're going to use, which we think will bring enormous amount of safety into our buildings, particularly our secondary buildings. I believe it's a game changer in a positive way. And we spoke to enough students and teachers and administrators in other districts that echo that believe that it's made a huge positive impact on their district. Do other magnets work on Yonder pouches? There are magnets out there that work. No one program is foolproof, but there are ways to address that. There are ways to address students who destroy bags to get their cell phones out. And many times they also destroyed their phone while they were trying to get to their cell phone when they were destroying the bag. But we will address all those through board policy and through administrative guidelines on what happens when this type of thing happens. I'll echo Mr. Johnson in saying that the kids, Dayton's done it for one school year, less than a school year. And the kids that we spoke to, the students, the teachers, were very positive. It was almost a relief to the students, the vast majority of students. It was a relief. They said, I didn't like when they took it at first, but my grades are going up and you know, I'm paying attention more. So we will address all those types of things.
I do absolutely want to thank this team for the work that we've been doing, and as I've mentioned previously, we'll continue this work. It's just the beginning. But the goal is not to be negative towards students or punitive towards students. The goal is to make our schools safer, to improve the educational outcomes for our students, which we all know and recognize that will be impactful for the rest of their lives. So that is the purpose and no other purpose. Before I start the next section, I do want to introduce Alex. Can you wave your hand there? And the team, for example, they've been here on site. They've already been touring our buildings, and they've been very instrumental in helping us make sure that we're rolling this out in the most effective way possible. So really sincerely appreciate your team being here. And they've been very quick to move on changes in buildings. A whole plethora of things have popped up here and there, and they've been very flexible and responsive. So thank you to your team, Alex. A second system, I'm going to pass this around. Well, actually, I'll go to my partner here, if you could pass that around. I also think this is a game changer. It's about the size of an ID badge. Every staff member would have one. It would go on just hang on the back of their badge. And if you take it and you click it 3 times, and there's a reason that they want it to be clicked 3 times, what do you hear or feel? You should feel a vibration, 3 quick clicks. So I'm going to talk about what that does and what the purpose of this alert badge means for our staff. So it's simple, it's a wearable device, it's equitable across the entire adoption will be our goal. It doesn't use, as soon as we started talking about this, our tech director, Howard Lawson, made an appointment in my office and was next to panic because he assumed this would go across our Wi-Fi, and I think he thinks I don't know anything about technology, which would be accurate. But the reality is it doesn't do that. And Ryan, can you wave your hand? Ryan, can you just give us a quick, how does it work? How does it not go across our Wi-Fi? Can you come up here or to that mic there would be fine. Thank you.
So we use a technology called Bluetooth and Zigbee, and what it does is create a mesh network, so it's not reliant on cellular service or Wi-Fi. We all probably have been in a school building where you can't send a text, you can't make a phone call, you can't get on the internet, so that will not affect the system and how it works. So it's a full total campus coverage as well, so it works outside, whether the kids are on the playground and a staff member needs help, whether they're at the football stadium or whether they're inside the building, and it takes them to a room level of where that person is.
Thank you. It also gives a precise location. You can see that every school will be mapped, and it'll flash. You'll see it in a little larger in just a minute, but it takes us directly to where the issue is occurring. And that's in every building. Well, once it's implemented, it would be in every building. And if they move, so does the dot move as well. And then also, how does it alert? So when a teacher clicks 3 times, there are beacons. You can see the red beacon that's flashing red in this particular picture. There will be beacons across the hallways, inside and outside of the building, which can flash a multitude of colors. We can select our own colors. I believe we're going to go with a yellow color so that when a teacher hits that or a staff member engages that will alert all of our safety team members, plus a text on their cell phone to our safety team members and our administration. And they'll know exactly where to go, and it'll flash yellow. When we go into other lockdowns, our more severe lockdowns, then they'll flash the corresponding color, and they'll also get the lockdown alert, a PA announcement, and the flasher. So, the person that has control over that will be the administrator. So really, there's the staff alert is 3 clicks, and the campus alert is the administration controls, and they do that through their cell phone. If we go into a
Lockdown. Lock the doors. Stay away from the windows.
Encerrarse. Cierren las puertas con llave. Manténganse lejos de las ventanas.
That would go across all the computers in every classroom, that message, so that there's no way somebody's not going to get that alert. And the corresponding red globe would be, our beacon would be flashing as well. That works to obviously inform everyone inside of the building, but our external, Brian, what's it called? The thing that flashes, our beacon will flash on the outside as well, and flash, depending on what lockdown we go into, the corresponding color. So this is their example. We're going to change this a bit, and we can customize this to meet our needs. But you can see this is what the administrator would have and be able to go into further advanced lockdowns. This is what would come across their cell phone when there's a teacher alert along with the yellow beacon. I'm not going through these statistics. This is just an example of statistics, but what also accompanies this product is our ability to know how often they're being engaged, where they're being engaged, when they're being engaged, and for what reason they're being engaged. So that is really beneficial to us in terms of knowing where to deploy our safety team members. Maybe there's a hot spot in between a certain change of class. We'll be able to really drill down into the data and more effectively use our limited resources more effectively. So our rollout on this is we've already done some tours, and we'll continue to do tours. We're rolling out to Garfield CLC and Ennis CLC will be our field testing sites. The Board of Education presentation, professional development, the parent-guardian letters, the safety team members trained on the 17th as well, and then we plan to go live tentatively the week of 2/27 would be our go-live date. On both of these products, we want to continue these field tests for 4 weeks and then do our due diligence in collecting good data. Data from our teachers, data from our parents, and data from our students on how effective these products are, and if we, based on that data, should we roll this out across the entire district or should we look for something else? So we're optimistic that these are our best choices, but we want to back that up with solid data before we come back to the board and ask to roll it out across the district. So now we are ready to answer as many questions as we possibly can.
Okay. So let me moderate this discussion. So we'll start with Dr. Akbar first. And by the way, I know that we as a general rule, we ask 2 questions and we let the next person ask questions. This rule is really for me. Anyway, so Dr. Akbar, I'll start with you.
I just want to mention one thing, or actually turn it over to Pat to give a little more information.
I was just going to say that as we talk to many people, teachers, administrators, what we need to be mindful of is our approach, I believe, is going to be successful towards safety and security when we layer our approach. Not one tool is going to be the end-all savior for that. And this, Centigix is a tool that we believe really supports the cell phone policy, because a lot of concerns we have heard is what happens if a fight, how are you going to protect my child if a fight breaks out in a classroom or in a hallway? And we believe that all of our educators being able to alert as quickly as possible, and our safety team members knowing the exact location of where the occurrence is happening will go a long way in making our schools safer. All the tools being used at one time.
And it's not just a negative behavior that this product is helpful. If we have a crisis with a student who has a medical condition or a medical issue, that's going to expedite our opportunity to get the proper care to the students or the staff member in the event of something like that happening. So at this point, Dr. Akbar.
Okay, thank you. And I have several questions, so I won't violate our Dr. Hall rule. But so for the first, the Yonder bag, I want to say for this whole thing, I agree with Pat Shipe that we do need a layered approach, but I want to add, in addition to that, we also need an approach that is comprehensive and also 2023 tested and understands and lives with the students and the families that we have. And so I do have some challenges with potentially both, but definitely the Yonder bag. And just thinking about a ban on cell phones and even putting them in the pouch. As I looked at Mrs. McKittrick's pouch and the pouch that I was given, there's nothing discriminately different from her pouch and mine. And so how am I going to know if we're at the lunch table which pouch is mine? So we have a lot of students and families who are ultra sensitive and concerned about their phones. And this is not, and I'm not trying to, and I want to make sure that it's very clear abundantly that I'm not saying this to denigrate our families and our students. I think that's important because these devices today are like $1,000. And so I think that that's a challenge, thinking about how do we delineate between the pouches. And then the other concern I had about the pouches, again, there's multiple, but when you looked at the data, and one, I am a data person, so that's where I live every day. That data was fraudulent. At least wasn't really, it didn't show a significance to me. And so I really want to know if, because it looked like it was all self-reported data. And so it didn't seem like there was any type of methodology that, like a t-test or a ANOVA, that would really be able to tell the difference between what people are actually reporting and what's actually happening as far as grades, performance, and behavior. And I think you have to have that type of comparative analysis in order to actually effectively say that something works and decreases those things. And so I want to be very specific and with our families that I do not want us to go out and say that this is definitely a product that decreases all those things, because the data does not, it says that on the paper, but it doesn't fully show it in a scientific way. So I want to be very clear about that. And so if you could share with us a little bit about the how you delineate, and then also how do you do a better job of actually showing the significance of the effectiveness of these devices?
The first one's the easier of the two. This pouch will be assigned to a particular student, and they'll use a magic marker and write their names on them. So their name will be written on the pouch. So that's how students will know. And students maintain control of the pouch all day. So one of the advantages of using a system like this versus just trying to do an all-out ban of cell phones, a lot of people are concerned about their student walking to school, their student after school, and they'll have access to their cell phones then. So that's one of the reasons in moving in this direction. And in terms of your research, as you know, there are variables and controls, et cetera, and while we cannot set up what we would quantify as a scientific field test, what we can do and what we hope to do, and that's why we're asking for a field test versus just flat out introducing it, we'll collect that data the best that we can and determine. So some of the things we can look at, we have baselines, for example, number of fights. We have baselines for about every type of behavior there is. So we can study this for a month, 2 months, however long we feel like we need to study this. So we plan on using that data coupled with surveys from all groups and bring that data to you, present that in a PowerPoint again, whether it's a month from now or 60 days from now, so that we can make an informed decision.
All right, Mr. Perry.
Sure. So I do have two questions, one for each device that we've seen here. With the Yonder, you indicated you talked to several students, teachers at Dayton. A lot of the concerns I've been hearing have been from parents who've been concerned about their kids not having their phones at school. Were you able to speak to any parents that day after school, let's say?
We did not have access to parents. So I'm not sure exactly how they responded. And I understand the concerns that some parents may have, and I do understand that. I would say that I'm not sure parents fully understand, especially if their student isn't a student that might typically exhibit questionable behavior at times, although I think we all agree everyone's capable of that at any given point. But cell phones are a huge disruptor. And some of the things we had talked about previously, but they're often used to organize fights, to text locations of where the fight's going to be, to film them. So they are a constant threat, and although I understand why some parents have some trepidation, overall safety in the building, I firmly believe will improve.
Okay.
Just add something I'll add. While we didn't speak directly to parents, we did speak to administrators, including Superintendent Lally, as to what secondhand what the parents' reactions were. And just like anything, there was a small minority of parents that really pushed back, but she believes that even after it was implemented, very soon after, within the first month or so, that even those parents saw the results, not scientific, saw the results and have been satisfied that it is a positive thing.
Okay. And then with regards to the Centigix device.
Centigix.
Centigix. Is that right? Centigix? Okay. So this device, every student has one on their person, right?
No,
Or
these are
just
not
the
carried
teachers?
by students. These are carried by staff members only.
Okay. I'm looking at the data that you have on the charts there, the number of alerts that were done between, just in 1 month in 2021. Looks like most of them, 2/3 were in elementary schools. Do we know why that is? Why that was?
I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I think it does bring up a valid point that currently we're piloting in a middle school and high school, and we know that we have to further look at what we're doing for our elementary schools as well. So I think that's a really valid point, Joe.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Just very quickly, I want to just elaborate on what Dr. Akbar has stated in regards to the data for cell phone usage. There's a lot of research out there to support what you're saying that's been researched in peer-reviewed journals. There's been meta-analysis about the impact. So we have reference points that can give us plenty of data at length, and then we can do comparative analysis within our district for the impact we have. So the information is there to support academic gains and losses as a result. Also, to the counselor's point about imagery, self-esteem, depression, there have been academic studies, validated studies, to answer all your questions and the numerous tests taken. Now, I know that we're talking about district specific, but just as a starting point, we have data to support, and then we, look in the gray areas and we conduct our own data. So that's that part. So that's very doable, attainable. My question was, in regards to the pouches, if a child comes through and they're like, oh, I got my phone, can I take it back to my car? If we're talking about high school, is that going to be an allowable thing, or do they just have to surrender phone at that point?
No, if a student wants to keep their phone in their car, that's entirely up to them.
So they can say, oh, I forgot my phone, can I run back and take it to my car?
Yeah, but then they have to come back through.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I just was wondering how deep we were going to get in it and how that could be a problem. Additionally, I think, well, I can act, this is for a later time, because the questions about students who compromise the pouches or try to find ways to open the pouches, I thought about so many things with magnets and how I would think through that. If we're the good, real technical STEM kids, like, oh, I got you, I'm going to put it in my water bottle, I can open the pouches. But whatever. Ms. Shipe, you talked about we're going to deal with that policy-wise. And so I just want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in the same predicament we're in now, and that we are very consistent in the event that this passed, that whatever the consequence is, the consequence is the consequence, whatever that may be. If the phone is out the pouch, this is what happens. It's not, no, okay, well, this time, this is the consequence. So then we don't have another solid policy in place that becomes moot because we don't act on it. So that's the only part that I wanted to kind of add to that.
And we have, by the way, thought of that and have been very sensitive to a lot of that. We believe that it will be reinforced through training of both administrators and staff and parents when the parents come in. And I couldn't disagree with that at all. We do have to, as with anything, be consistent throughout the district, that the expectations are there, everybody is aware of them, and that if this happens, this will happen. So I agree.
Okay, and lastly, how did we determine what schools we were going to roll these out on? Like, how did we determine which schools were going to get the pouches first, or what would be the field test?
Well, we wanted to make sure we rolled it out across multiple clusters. We wanted to make sure that some of our schools that are more in need saw something coming, something actually happening in their buildings. So that's why we did that as well. And also remember, for example, you don't see Firestone on there. It's because we rolled the metal detectors out, the new metal detectors out there last week, which is going very well, by the way. And the reason we chose Firestone for metal detectors is because they have the largest number of students coming through all at once, which was really delaying the start of their school day. So that's why we picked that. But really, it was just talking to the union, talking to our principals, and talking to our supervisors who supervise those schools, and asking the question, where is in most need that we need to roll this out? So that's why we chose what we chose, and we wanted to get a good cross-section of all of our schools.
And choose both middle schools and high schools.
Okay, Ms. Autry.
Thank you. So my question is actually prompted by something I heard one of our student school board members share at the recent Paint and Twist. And so they, one of the students asked about students who are allowed to listen to music at lunchtime, or sometimes teachers allow that in the class. You know, we have 90-minute periods. And so my question is, will classrooms have the opportunity to have a magnet in their classroom, or maybe even in the cafeterias? You know, I'm one of those people at lunchtime, I'm an introvert. I don't want to socialize. That's not a bad thing if students sometimes want to sit off to the side and listen to music. It might help them relax, focus, whatever they need to do. So I'm thinking about students in those circumstances. I'm also thinking about teachers who aren't having issues in their classrooms. Will they be required? You know, is this district-wide, or is this going to be building-wide?
One of the things I think we need to do when it comes to anything we roll out, and the accountability that we spoke about, it must be consistent, and it must be equitably applied across the whole district. And part of the challenge with allowing students to have access to their phones at lunch, or maybe a particular classroom, is we don't have the mechanism at that point to ensure that they're locked up at the end of lunch as those 300 students scatter to the winds to go to their next period. That would be incredibly challenging to ensure that they're locked up again. And same in a classroom. If 25 students in a classroom, teacher allows it to be opened, and then they walk out, and then the students will also have an expectation that all teachers would allow that, and we defeated the purpose of this whole initiative. So while I understand exactly what you're saying, I think that's credibility, but I think when it comes to actually implementing it, that would be extremely difficult, especially in its infancy of this rollout.
Okay. So that's concerning for me and for those students. So I'll just say that if nobody else will. So to me, this is not a situation where one size is going to fit all. You know, if students need music and teachers allow that for them to study, focus, relax, you know, for us to take that away, I don't agree with that. So
Can we do
I think that
Can we do a playlist where students can select songs, and then they'll be exposed to different genres of music, but they also can listen to music that can be controlled through the PA system or the
I think they should be able to do whatever the teacher finds works for them. And if that's letting the student have their earbuds in while they're studying, then they should be able to do that, in my opinion.
Real quick, I see that there are hands in the audience. Again, you know, this is we don't actually take audience participation in the board meeting. Sorry, apologies for that. Dr. Akbar, did you have more questions? Oh, are you on?
I did. One, I wanted to first. I neglected to say this the first time. I want to thank the team for their visit to Dayton, and also bringing a solution. And so please don't take my questions and thoughts to be a direct dismissal of your work. I think it's definitely worthwhile, and I think this is a discussion we need to have. Even as we talk about the potential gaps, we need to make sure that whatever solution we have should also attune to the gaps. And so that was one thing. And also, I appreciate my colleague, Ms. Jackson's comments about the litany of data and research out there around cell phone usage. But the part that's the gap for me is not that. I think we all understand that the increase, not only cell phone use, but just internet and digital connectiveness is a part of that distance that we're having around interrelationships. So I think that's something that we all can agree, and then when we read the data, we agree on. But what the distance is, and the challenge I have, is that when we connect cell phones to safety and we're only seeing it from one lens, that's my challenge, because we have students here who also live in a reality where their phones are at their hip and on their fingertips at all times of the day. And we cannot lock up their cell phones and think that bullying on Facebook and Instagram and all of those things are going to cease. They are not. They are not. And so I think that I'm challenged to believe that a one-size-fits-all approach will reduce those things. I think what we will see likely is potentially some of the incidents that are happening occur based off of what happened in on the phone during the school, but it won't prevent all the things that happen after school. It won't prevent all the things that happen on the weekends. And so I want to make sure that we are taking a comprehensive approach. So that's my commentary. But back to my question that I didn't get a chance to ask before, about the crisis alert system, the clicker, name tag, ID, whatever it's called. Please forgive me, Centegix. Please forgive me. When you press it, all it does is vibrate, at least from what I just tested. And then you showed a red, yellow, white system. The challenge that we need to rectify, I'm not saying that that's a bad system, so please, I think that actually could work, but we also have to think about, if we're going to take the cell phones away, how are we going to give the students an opportunity to also be participants in making alerts? Because we know when things have happened in schools throughout this country, students have been able to text and call, and that's how some of the emergency responses have arrived. So I want to make sure that we're not leaving out the students who all want to do the right thing. The vast majority. They all care about their health and safety. They care about their peers' health and safety. And so I think that that's something that's a gap in the usage of that. The question I have is, when you press it, how do you know that it's a red, a yellow, or a white? It doesn't seem like it gives you that discriminatory type of distinction. And so it seems like it's like an after report, which is somewhat challenging because you wouldn't know what type of help to send. So when you say the crisis alert, when it said something about help, what does help mean? Because help could mean 15 different things.
So I'm going to let Dr. Thompson answer that, but I do want to make just a couple questions to Ms. Autry, and I believe you, Ms. Jackson, had raised an issue. So as far as we collect data from the field studies, it's not going to be data, hopefully, that is just about the behaviors. I think we have recognized over the last number of months and maybe a few years how once a student has that cell phone in use, whether it's at lunchtime or whatever, the challenge and any staff member challenging that student to lock it back up has led to many confrontations, and we're hoping that those will be eased. They don't lock it back up willingly very many times. Addition to that, I hope we have data that supports the amount of lost instructional time because of cell phone use by students in the classroom, in the schools, is enormous. And we hope to be able to see more instructional time where students are engaged rather than be listening to music in the classroom or on their cell phones. So those are all challenges, and rightfully so. We need to find answers to that. But what we hope does not happen is that we start poking so many holes into this policy for the field study that we won't get true data, and we won't see the benefits of the study as they're done. I can only tell you again, the people that we've talked to, when they say the way it was implemented as consistently across a district as it can be, that benefits the program. So I'll let you answer the question about.
So to be clear, on these that would be issued to a teacher, all or any staff member, aside from the administrator, the only thing they can do is click it 3 times. And why does it take 3 clicks? So just so they don't inadvertently hit it once and, oh gosh, they'll click it 3 times. The buzzing's just so they know it went through. But instantaneously, the beacons will flash yellow. An alert will be sent to the safety team members in the office, and they'll use their cell phones to look down and see exactly where that is, where that incident is. Now, it could be a fight. It could be a medical emergency. It needs to be something that is serious in nature. We don't want people clicking because a student walked out of the room, for example.
And it's not for
Yeah, and that's part of the training so that teachers and staff consistently understand when do I use it and what do I use it for, and we'll ensure that we do that. Then the other beacon colors will match our 3 different lockdowns, and the only person that can initiate those are the building principal. So that's how it will work. So for a staff member, it's really simple. It's 3 clicks, a yellow light goes, a message is sent. When the flashing lockdown comes on their computer screens, that's when the principal and maybe a designee for the principal in case the principal's not there that day, an assistant principal, for example, would be the only people that would be able to initiate that red lockdown, which would be on the screen, on the PAs, and strobe red.
So if I could, I have a follow-up question from what you just shared, which might go with my second question, which is around the lights and the sounds. I'm wondering, have we thought about students who have PTSD, or even staff members who have PTSD, who have anxiety, who have seizures, with all the blinking and noise that does potentially trigger some concerns, especially one of the ones that I'm really concerned about is, which it could be any school, but especially our elementary schools. And then the last thing I wanted to know was, as we think about what you're saying with the principal having control of designating which one it is, would they need to do that from their computer in order to designate? Because the likelihood, if thinking about the principals that I know, they're not going to be at their computer. They're going to go to where it says the issue is.
Yeah, no, that one's an easy one. That's an app on their cell phone. They can also do it from a computer, but that's an app on their cell phone. And then, I understand your concern about the strobing, but every month by Ohio revised code, we must do fire alarms I don't know if you recall being in a building when a fire alarm drill takes place. Those are red, bright strobes, and a really loud siren goes off as the kids are going through the hallways. So I have not, in my career, I've not experienced any real issues with that, although we do have some students in certain classrooms that might have extensive disabilities. And in those rooms, those teachers are prepared. They put headphones on kids' ears, et cetera, to help, ease their anxiety.
The other, I'm sorry, Dr. Hull, the other, just briefly, and it was you, Dr. Akbar, that raised this issue about bullying and social media outside of the school. We had visited a middle school in Dayton, and the principal there made what I felt was a good point, and our team really discussed it with her. She said that they're responsible to do their due diligence to stop bullying and as much as they can, and monitor social media while the students are at the building. This is a great way to reach out to parents and to collaborate with them on how they can do that once the students leave our buildings, once the students go to an athletic event or go to an after school. And so it does take everybody to engage in this type of process. But we need to do our due diligence within our buildings, and that's what this will do.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so I'm glad that we did that because most of my questions were answered in the questions you all asked. So thank you for that. So I guess I'm left with comments, and I'd ask you to comment on my comments if you'd be so kind. So first, I think it's important that we not let the perfect become the enemy of the good, right? I think as has been noted, there are going to be gaps in any system that we come up with. And so to me, the easy part is the identification of those gaps, right? But I think of it almost like the Swiss cheese model, right? Like if I can have enough layers there, where I had a gap in one layer of cheese, the next layer of cheese, the gap's not there, the cheese is there. The hole may be another part, but that's why I have the third layer of cheese, right? So there's a book about this anyway. So just saying. And then, so again, I just would caution that we not let the perfect become the enemy of the good here. Secondly, we're talking about a pilot phase here, not universal adoption forever and ever ad infinitum, amen, right? So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. And third comment, there was a time when cell phones did not exist. And so what did we do then, right? A lot of the issues that have been articulated tonight are issues that existed before cell phones existed. So again, what did we do then? And that question I think is rhetorical. And then I guess the next comment as I was jotting down notes here is all the issues that we're raising, Dayton is dealing with. And so they've managed to get to this point in the year without lawsuits being filed and without egregious circumstances happening in their school that, so again, I think that, and I'm not so filled with hubris as to think that I'm going to come up with things magically that some of the other districts have not thought of or come up with. Part of the reason why these honor bags are used, and I want to say, was it 900 districts? I think over 1,000 districts, right? So 1,000 districts of people asking questions like these over the years, right? So you have a lot of smart people that have had to answer those questions and fine tune the answers, and I think this building and this room is full of additional really smart, talented people, and I think that we'll come up with the answers to address the gaps that we've identified so far tonight. And then I want to mention, we talked about bullying and intimidation. I think Dr. Akbar is right. I don't think that yonder bags or whatnot are going to stop that from happening. Bullying existed before cell phones did too, right? But we talked about cell phones being an addiction. I think Ms. Autry made that comment a few weeks ago. And insofar as we can limit a student being on the phone for even if it's only 6, 7, 8 hours a day, we're doing our small part to address that. And at least during those 6, 7 hours, those students are not on social media and not bullying, because we know that oftentimes during the daytime, students are bullied during the daytime at school. A student may get a threatening text message from another student while they're at school. They may see a video posted about them while they're at school. So at least during the school day, we've effectively created an environment where, like, at least during that time, there's a safe spot, where they're not going to be bullied via social media. They're not going to be distracted by something that they see on their phone that's traumatic to them, that now ruins the rest of their day. And so. And I don't know how many of you, I'm sure some of you have probably seen this, but there was a suicide of a freshman young woman in New Jersey last week. And, she committed suicide a couple of days after being assaulted in school with students who were using the phones to film a TikTok video of her being assaulted. And, she was struck with a water bottle in the face and punched and kicked while walking down the hallway. And it didn't end there. When this young woman went home, she continued to be berated by additional bullying in that platform. That was all kinds of just disgusting, right? And 2 days later, she committed suicide. And so we know that those kinds of behaviors and activities are occurring in our schools every day. And I think we are just fortunate thus far that we haven't had that kind of occurrence. And so as we think about as I thought about, because I had a question too around, well, what about the issues so you've addressed the issue I had, because now we have the badge that the teachers can wear as well, which again plugs another hole. By itself is not the solution, but again, there's the second layer of Swiss cheese, if you will. And so I am cautiously optimistic about the use of these two things in concert. Plus, guess what? We have the third layer, which is our metal detectors and the camera system that's coming online. So we are slowly building this. But I think it's a mistake to fixate upon any one piece of cheese and say that because that piece of cheese has holes in it, that we should toss it out. Because again, I think the easy part is the identification of gaps. I think in preparation for this meeting, I know a lot of us on the board have done our own research as well, and I've had the opportunity to read a ton of articles about this. And I think Ms. Jackson is, well stated when she talks about the mountain of data out here that talks about the destructive nature of cell phone device usage, in our younger people. So while I can acknowledge and appreciate that these are not perfect solutions, I would encourage this board to be supportive of at least trialing these things in a pilot phase, and let us learn together, about the deficiencies that may exist, or the unforeseen or unintended consequences that could result. I think that's why we're talking about pilot, not universal adoption. And so I think all that we're looking for tonight is just an agreement around, can we pilot this? And again, I know we're going to have a vote around this in a bit, but I'm wholeheartely in support of proceeding in this direction, while recognizing that it's not perfect, and recognizing that we may at some point reverse field and maybe decide to go in a different direction. But listen, we all get the emails, like, we have got to do something. And so again, I'm not going to let the perfection be the enemy of the good. And so I think we're on a glide path to good. And insofar as we identify areas of opportunity, we can tweak those as we proceed. So that's my comments. Apologize I didn't have any questions for you all, but that's because my talented colleagues asked all of the really good questions. So those are my comments. I would invite any of you or any of you to comment on what I just shared.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and I'll reply to them in a way that will honor your delivery method, Dr. Hall. As we all know, any good charcuterie board has many types of cheese on it, right? And that's exactly what you said. We have to have more than one tool. A lot of very smart, good people, both in the administration and within the union, have worked for any number of months, brainstorming and trying to build a multi-layered approach to benefit our students and our parents, and quite frankly, the Akron community. Akron Public Schools is an outstanding school system, and we've taken some bruises over the last number of months. And I'm very hopeful, as my teachers are, in that we can turn a corner here and start to work collaboratively to try to address some of the challenges and also highlight the many, many wonderful things that occur in Akron Public Schools. And you saw that at the beginning of this meeting tonight. And so hopefully we can work together and answer all the questions surrounding these tools over the next few months.
I would just like to thank our team for giving up 2 days and a night away from their family and lots of other research duties, et cetera, preparation for tonight. So thank you all very much. And I really want to leave with you emphasizing that this is just the beginning. And we're going to continue to work together to try and solve the problems that we face. And we believe that we can do that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And before you step away, we actually have one more question. Dr. Akbar?
Well, this isn't a question, and I'll be brief. I just want to just say, again, thank you for all of your work. I am not saying that in jest. I actually mean it. And I said this at our policy meeting. I really think that we're missing a golden opportunity before we start paying money for all of these different potential systems, that we need to engage our students and let them lead on this discussion, because they're the ones who live this day in and day out from their own perspectives and the way in which they engage with this device and in the schools. And I was at the Akron Roundtable event, and I was able to sit and fortunate to sit with some of our brilliant student leaders, and they were talking about being, the idea of taking away the phones. And I asked them, are there other things we could do? And they, spouted off a few different ideas. One of them was, well, can we just work with our students to really figure out how do we have them keep their phones and be able to have access to some of the functions of the phone, but not all of them. And I don't know how to do that, but there might be some suggestions that they come up with that we can explore as well. And I don't want that to come at the end. I think that should come at the beginning. And so my vote today will be representing us, I think, not doing that first, because I really think that our students are talented enough to lead in this discussion.
And then just to close, I think our team needs to vote on whether you get to unlock your bags.
I already gave it.
Okay. All right, we'll send that around.
So thank you all. And so as we proceed further into the meeting, again, when we get to this section of the agenda, it will require a motion and discussion. So there'll be an opportunity for some last-minute discussion on this, too, before we take a vote. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Oh, no.
All right, so we can proceed to item 4 on the agenda. So we'll move to approval of the previous meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the January 23rd, 2023 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
It's been probably moved by Ms. Autry and seconded by Ms. McKittrick. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander? Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Next, we proceed to, next is our personal recommendations. Dr. Kaver.
Yes, I do have a recommendation, but first, it is with sadness that we would like to report the passing of Donald Stucher Jr. on January 24th. Donnie, as he is affectionately called, worked with Akron Public Schools for 17 years. He spent the last 14 as a bus mechanic here in the district. And according to his friends and colleagues, he enjoyed riding his motorcycle, coffee, and classic rock. Donnie loved his job at APS, and he was a very talented mechanic. So he will be deeply missed by the Transportation Department, and he is in our thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Kaver.
I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. Akbar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McKittrick. Any discussion?
I have one thing.
Oh, sure. Yes.
So I see in item number 5.5 that Ms. Sarah Core is going to be proposing to go to a different position. I want to commend her for what she's done at Resnick for the last couple of years. You know, when my kids have been at Resnick, I have one in 4th grade there now, and she stepped right in when Ms. Booth left and did an admirable job. You know, great principal there. We're going to miss her for sure at Resnick. So thank you, Ms. Core.
And thank you, Mr. Perry. Ms. Autry?
Yes, thank you. 2 things. Item 5.4, I just wanted to acknowledge those professional staff with getting salary adjustments for getting degrees. So thank you for being examples of being learners. Always learning. And then also, item 11.1, I just wanted to acknowledge the retirement of Nancy Laria, who is a person who I was able to work with closely. She's a past Akron Council PTA president, but she also, of course, is retiring as a paraprofessional at Garfield, and I believe she worked at Kenmore as well. So she was a person that I witnessed being very dedicated to our district and to students, and she will be missed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Autry. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, Mr. Atkins.
Mrs. Autry? Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
No on 6.3, 11.3, and 11.5. Yes on the balance.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Next, we proceed to items 18 through 21. This is approval of resolutions and motions in the consent agenda. Dr. Kaver.
Yes, I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 21. They are in proper format, and I move for their approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Akbar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Jackson. Any discussion? Okay, roll call. Oh, Dr. Akbar.
Just want to acknowledge all of the donations that we've received over the last few weeks, specifically the donation from the West Akron 5K walk for the support they're giving Schumacher. Many of us participate in that walk, and to know that the support that we give to the walk also supports APS is good to see.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Akbar. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mrs. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Ms. McKittrick?
Yes.
The motion carries. Next, we'll move to item 23, which is a business affairs recommendation. Dr. Kaver.
I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in category 23.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. McKittrick. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Dr. Akbar. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Perry.
So item 23.12 is the Centegic system that we just reviewed, is that right?
Roger that.
Is that the total cost I see, or just total cost, period? There's no yearly maintenance fee or anything, it's just a one-time fee?
Yeah, this is a pilot study.
Okay.
So again, it's just a pilot in a couple buildings. Yep. Other questions or discussion? Ms. Autry.
So item 23.38 is for the Yonder pouches, that's correct?
Roger that.
Okay. And it's for the pilot for 2,475 pouches.
Roger that.
I just wanted to, again, echo what everyone discussed on this particular topic. I would like to see it accompanied by enforcement of our existing policy, and including what Dr. Akbar mentioned about leaning into our student voices. And then if it's true collaboration, I'd like to also make sure that we get significant data from the families as well. Yeah. So I just wanted to make that comment about that particular item.
Thank you, Ms. Autry. Mr. Perry.
I think just one other thing also, it just occurred to me that we could, we're only buying 2,500 or so. We could make it a voluntary basis at first, which students want to volunteer to have their phones put in this at first. That's certainly something we can certainly consider, because I guess some students would actually want to do it just to see how it works. Just a comment.
Okay. Are there any other discussion? So again, I'll comment here as well. I think, so I recognize Ms. Autry's commentary as well, and I agree with her. I think that I think that's why this is called a pilot, right? And so we have an opportunity while we're piloting. Again, this is a both and conversation, not an either or, right? We can do the pilot and we can continue collecting additional feedback, talking about data, leaning into student voice. I mean, these are all things we can do as we pilot this. And I think this is something that we need to do and we should be voting in favor of, because if not, I don't know where we go from here. And so my hope is that this board is supportive of those items in particular. So that's my contribution to the discussion. Is there other discussion? Ms. Jackson.
Just to further confirm your statements, Dr. Hall, I think the pilot example will give us a good focus group of students where we can then, if we're very intentional with the data, that we can see the academic improvements and maybe behaviors per building. Specifically, I know that there's some building that have been shown that I think we may be able to get a very clear picture when rolling this out if this in fact is impactful as what we're anticipating it to be or not. And as we stated, then we may have to pivot with something else. But it's a multifaceted approach and it's layered. We didn't get here overnight and we're not going to get out of it overnight. So it's best that we use multiple strategies to maximize the outcome. And I just want to remind everyone that this is an educational institution. It's not an after-school club. It's not a camp. The goal, we are in the business of education. And so we have to keep that at the forefront in the main things. And I think it's also great, as we discussed, we have programs that we put in place, mental health supports and things like that to deal with other issues. So we are doing multiple things in order to help our community, to help our learners, and to make our environment safe and welcoming for learning again. So I just want to urge that I think that this is the right way to go.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I guess I'll comment further. Just want to say one other item. As I've been in school buildings, I've heard from a fair number of teachers that have expressed outright fear of confronting students about their cell phones in classrooms. And so when we talk about policy, a policy has to be accompanied by tools to make a policy enforceable. Hence the procedural part, right? A policy should not exist by itself without an accompanying robust procedure and tools to accompany that. So again, I think this is that these become tools that allow us to better enforce existing policies, even as we work to tweak them. So those are my comments. Is there any other discussion or questions? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Mrs. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Okay, buckle up. No on 2311, 2315, 2318, 2324, 2325, 2326, 2327, 2328, 2332, and 2333. Yes on the rest.
Dr. Akbar?
Abstain from 2323, and nay on 23.38, and yes on the balance.
Okay. Mr. Atkins, thank you for that. Next, we move to Superintendent's report. Dr. Kaber.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. First, I want to bring your attention to the cards that were placed at your seats, board members, that says, enjoy this random act of kindness this evening. So we know how a simple act of kindness can make a big difference in someone's life. So we are asking our staff members to display or to do random acts of kindness across the district. It could be buying someone a piece of candy. It doesn't mean you have to buy something, but we are asking them, you could just leave a quote, leave a nice message, but just to pay it forward at times across the district in order to create a ripple effect of happiness and creating a brighter tomorrow for all. So today we hope you enjoy your little treat that we left behind for you and know that you are appreciated. I also want to bring the board's attention to the Winter Concert Series. We have programs for you all to attend. Everyone is invited, but I know board members, we have some board members that are actually attending and speaking at some of these events, but just wanted to remind you all that those are already currently taking place. So please take the time to look at the schedule. And finally, we have one more presentation tonight as a part of the superintendent's update. So I'm going to ask Dr. Lash to join us at the podium. We would like to give you all a brief update on attendance here in the district and where we are as of date. Do you need this?
Good evening.
Dr. Lash, you could just let me know, signal when you need to advance.
I was going to say, how will I know? Good evening. Tonight, I just want to provide you a brief overview of our current attendance data as of February 10th, 2023. So that would be as of Friday. Next slide. So before I overview the attendance data, I just want to mention that as a shared priority, attendance is an area that each of us, no matter what level in the district we are, each of us shares. And so we know that being at school every day matters. It matters for our students academically, emotionally, socially. And so as a leadership group, we've identified several questions, key questions that we hope to understand better around attendance and tasks that we hope to accomplish. So as we take a look at this data, again, as of Friday, the table shows us the overall district attendance rate at 86%. Our chronic absenteeism rate at 48.09%. And just a reminder, chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% or more of school. And you'll see our state chronic absenteeism target goal of 48.8%, and that is a reduction by 1.1% based on last year's chronic absenteeism rate. Our pie chart there shows the percentage of our students, their absences, and so you'll see the green represents satisfactory, 26.91%, yellow, orange, red. You'll see the breakdowns there, again, that give you an overall picture of the percentage of our students that are missing that amount of school. This chart helps us to see absenteeism by grade, and you can see.
Dr. Lash, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Can you go back to the last slide for just a second? Can you just define for anybody that's maybe watching as well, like how we define chronic absenteeism? And again, I know that you've talked about this before, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page as far as how we're defining it and how it may have changed and how we defined it a year or two ago.
Well, chronic absenteeism, the definition hasn't changed.
Oh, it has not changed. Okay,
It has
I beg
not.
your pardon. Okay.
No worries.
I'm sorry, 2 years ago. Okay, calculations changed. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
All right.
The way, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So chronic absenteeism is missing 10% or more of your school hours. And it does not matter what the absence is, so excused reasons or unexcused reasons, just being absent from school counts into the chronic absenteeism calculation.
And how late can I come to school and still get credit for attending school that day?
So you still get credit for being present, but the time that you miss does count toward chronic absenteeism. So any time missed from school counts toward chronic absenteeism.
Okay, so as an example, if I come in third period, I get credit because I was at school that day, but the 3 periods I missed, that still goes into the calculation as far as looking towards the overall chronic absenteeism rate. Okay, gotcha. All right.
Okay.
Higher math, it's challenging. Okay, all right, thank you. Please continue.
Yes. All right, so again, this chart shows chronic absenteeism by grade, and you'll be able to see that our transition grades, you see an increase in chronic absenteeism, so kindergarten and from elementary to middle school and from middle school to high school. And you'll see that the grade levels with the highest, if you look at elementary versus secondary, our 12th grade students have the highest chronic absenteeism rate, and our kindergarten students have the highest chronic absenteeism rate on the elementary side. For preschool, it's not listed there because preschool attendance does not count in our calculation, but I thought it would be important to mention that the chronic absenteeism rate for preschool students as of Friday is 56.65%. That means that 56.65% of our preschool students have missed 10% or more of their school hours. And this is important. It's an indicator that we have work to do in helping our families understand the importance of being at school, even in the younger grades, because that sets patterns and habits for future years, and definitely as we look into kindergarten.
So just a quick comment on that piece. To be fair as well, especially with the preschooler group, my oldest daughter is in preschool, and she's missed like a ton of time, in part because this is like the worst triple-demic we've seen in a long time, right? RSV and COVID and the flu and the URTIs, and so because of COVID, a lot of children were not in school or or limited exposure for 2 years, and now they're in school, and so they're getting everything. So and I was going to ask, so which leads to my question. There was a question embedded in there, and that is, are we code the reasons why students miss, right? So
yes.
so and not you're probably going to talk about that later on. Maybe no. Okay. All right. Well, carry on. I'll ask you offline. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But yes,
I do have one quick question before you begin.
Yes.
How many days does that amount to? 10%.
So it's based on your membership, your enrollment. So if you come, let's say you transfer into Akron Public Schools in September or October, it's based on your membership.
Okay.
But let's just go off of a typical year, 180 days, 10% of that would be 18 days.
Yeah.
So missing 2 days a month of school puts you in the chronic absenteeism category. Okay. So this last slide, just want to just kind of highlight that we do have processes and partners that help us with this work around attendance. Of course, we follow House Bill 410. When students meet specific thresholds of truancy, we communicate with families at regular intervals about attendance, and the buildings do a nice job of recognizing students and providing incentives for being at school. And our partners help us recognize students as well. In addition to helping us look at our data and think through interventions that might help us impact attendance. And as a result, I just want to call this out, as a result of ESSER dollars, we were able to partner with Harvard Proving Ground in the Ohio Attendance Improvement Network and work with other districts in that network. And we've completed several sessions looking at data, again, all around working toward interventions, hopefully that will impact student attendance. And so we know that the work continues. Again, it's a shared priority owned by every single one of us, doing our part to encourage students, encourage our families to work through and get students to school. And we're committed. We're committed to helping staff, students, and our families understand the importance of being at school every day. That's it, just a brief update.
Thank you, Dr. Lash. We appreciate the update this evening. We just wanted to make sure that we brought some information. We know that that is one of the items in the board, the APS 3 and 3, and just wanted to give you an update. Also to recognize, while attendance rate is reported to the state, it's the chronic absenteeism that's going to be a part of our calculation on one of the components of the report card. And so we do have a goal of reducing it by 1.1% this year. And we're working hard on that, but it is getting harder and harder to reach that goal. So we are counting on all of our families, specifically those that are listening right now, to do their due diligence to get those families and those children to school when they're healthy, Dr. Hall, at all times, so that they can help us improve our chronic absenteeism rate. Thank you. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lash. Appreciate it. Next, we move to President's report. So I'm going to be brief because I know that this has been a long meeting already, so I'll be brief. I see the eye rolls of my colleagues when I said that, but I'm going to give this a good old try here. 3 minutes or less. Here we go. Time me. Here we go. So first, I want to thank my colleagues for their support in passing, supporting the pilot with regard to the Yonder bags and the Centegix name badges. I also want to thank Ms. Shipe and Ms. Treen, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Richards, and the support staffs from Centegix and from Yonder for coming tonight. Definitely appreciate that and looking forward to seeing that at work. Secondly, we just want to thank also Dr. Halassa as well. I also went to the science fair, and it's more than a fair. It's an event. Right, and you've got to be there for this event. So again, if you didn't go this year, just make it a point to go. Also, as well, wanted to also congratulate Ms. Chapman again on her induction into the St. Vincent St. Mary Hall of Fame. I just wish. Now I gotta find old footage of you playing. I gotta see you dominating out there. Next, quickly, just want to say I'm at 90 seconds already. So next, let me pivot to student school board members. So at the next school board meeting, we're going to have a student school board president and a student school board vice president. One of them will be attending along with the cluster school board member. So we'll have those two seats will be occupied next week those students chose to undergo a reorganization And so they're going to begin meeting. They're going to begin meeting every 2 weeks, similar to what we do. They'll start to draft their own agenda. They may be inviting some of us to attend some of their meetings as well. So to Dr. Akbar's earlier point about student voice, we want to make sure that we had a structure set up to get student voice to capture it, right, in a more organized way. So I'm certainly looking forward to that as we move forward. Also want to thank Signet Jewelers for their partnership. Again, was there for that as well. So with that, I will conclude my report. See, that was brief. That was 3 minutes almost exactly. So thank you. So with that, we will move to Treasurer's report. Mr. Atkins.
No report.
Okay. Next, we'll go to committee reports. Legal Contracts and Board Policy Committee. Dr. Akbar.
Yes, hello. We met and had a really robust meeting to discuss our priorities as a committee for this year. One of the things we wanted to do a little bit differently this year is to be able to draft our priorities around policies at the beginning of the year. One of those policies being the cell phone policy, and so we're excited and eager to work in partnership with Dr. Thompson and the team that just presented with us on a review of the current policy, which is quite comprehensive, as well as any modifications that need to be made so that it can guide our administrative guidelines well. And so we've all agreed that was one of our top priorities. And so next, we also looked at potentially looking at our pet policy and ensuring that we can review that and have a discussion around the inclusion of emotional support animals in our buildings, which goes above and beyond service animals. And so there are two different classifications and usage. And so we discussed that as one of our priorities. And then we also talked about a priority around making sure that there's equity in our transportation, and so that the students who go to our specialty schools aren't just students who have the transportation to go and get there themselves. And so those are some of the priorities that we talked about. Neola has come in and looked at and had an extensive look at our policies and are phasing in some reviews that we would want to look at and adopt as well, so that we can get our policies up to date, because we have quite a bit of policies that haven't been reviewed since the early 2000s, and so we want to rectify that. We also have to come before you today two policies for the third and final reading. On behalf of the Legal Contracts and Board Policy Committee, we request the board's full approval of both of these policies. Policy 5460.01 for diploma deferrals, which works to ensure that our students who may need to be in school longer than the age of 18 still have the opportunity to participate in graduation and receive a full diploma in that celebration with students that are their same age. And then we have policy 7440.03, which is small unmanned aircraft systems, and really preventing those small unmanned aircraft systems from flying above and inside of our properties. And then I felt and neglected to mention with our diploma deferral policy that we're recommending that the board approve is really changing the policy to really match our practice, which we've had in the district for many years. And so now we have a policy now that's aligned with our practice. And so those are two policies that put forward before this board from the committee, and we recommend adoption of those two policies. And that is my report.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I so move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Perry and seconded by Ms. Jackson. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Mrs. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Ms. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Akbar, for your work. Next, we move to item 28.2, the Finance and Capital Management Committee.
Thank you. And so the Finance Committee met briefly on January 30th for our first meeting of the year. We did go over future discussion topics that we'll be covering in the coming year, including LTOP, ESSER, levy scenarios, the governor's budget bill update, forecast prep, updates, levy prep, et cetera. And so we just kind of agree that those are some of the things that we're going to be discussing moving forward. And then also we had a brief preview presentation of LTOP. And so I will allow my other committee members to share out anything regarding that, but we'll be getting a fuller presentation on that coming soon.
Is there any other discussion from the other members of the Finance Committee? Okay, we're getting thumbs up. So, Ms. Autry, thank you so much for your update. Next, we'll proceed to item 28.3, Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Committee. Ms. McKittrick.
I'm pinch hitting for Mr. Alexander, because he's the new chair. But so we met on February 6th, and a couple things to highlight. The City of Akron awarded the grant for Akron After School Program in the amount of $185,000. So thank you to the City of Akron. And then again, thank you to Signet Jewelers and their Academy of Global Technology and Business at North High School as part of our College and Career Academies program. And as always, please don't forget to look at the links for College and Career Academy updates, Family Resource Center updates, Stay in the Game updates, and teaching and learning updates. Thank you.
Roger that. Next, we move to the Equity Committee. No report. Okay. So there's no unfinished business. We do have new business. We have Resolution 23-020, a resolution approving the resignation and agreement. Be it resolved that the Akron Public School District Board of Education approves the resignation of Christine Fowler-Mack effective March 4th, 2023, and approves the separation agreement and release with Ms. Fowler-Mack. Be it further resolved that the President of the Board be authorized to execute the separation agreement and release with Ms. Fowler-Mack. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been properly moved by Ms. McKittrick and seconded by Dr. Akbar. Is there any discussion? No discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Mr. Atkins.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Ms. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
The motion carries. Next, we have item 30.2, resolution appointing an interim superintendent. Be it resolved that the Akron Public School District Board of Education hereby appoints Mary Otley as interim superintendent of the Akron Public School District beginning February 14th, 2023 for an indefinite term, but ending upon the date of commencement of employment of a new superintendent appointed by the board after a search by the board. And be it further resolved that the Akron Public School District Board of Education hereby approves the attached interim superintendent contract of Mary Otley and authorizes the president of the board to execute such contract. Is there a motion?
I so move to approve.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Perry. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. McKittrick. Is there any discussion? Okay. Ms. Otley, I'm looking very forward to working with you. I think this board is as well. So we're looking forward to working with you in creating a positive relationship and moving our district forward. You know, your background and experience, your exploits are legendary in this district, and so we certainly are looking forward to working with you. And thank you so much for agreeing to take on this increased workload at this at this juncture. So thank you so much. The board really appreciates you. Thank you so much. Is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Next, we will move to item 31. We are going to recess into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 for the purpose of considering the employment of a public employee or official of the school district, and G4 for the purpose of reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning compensation or other terms and conditions of employment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Dr. Akbar. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. McKittrick. Is there any discussion? Gesundheit. Roll call, please, Mr. Atkins.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Jackson?
Aye.
Motion carries. There will be no action after the executive session, and we stand in recess. Thank you.